Good morning, Katie, and good morning, everyone. And I'm just breathing in and really feeling all of your essences, and it's really beautiful to be here and to share with you. It's interesting in this changing world how resistance seems to be uh, coming up for all people on all sides. Resistance to what's happening, resistance to wearing a mask, resistance to not wearing a mask, and on and on. And when Katie first mentioned this topic to me, I thought, oh, resistance. I've had a long and interesting journey with this. And I've come to see it as such a beautiful messenger for me, such an indicator of what's happening inside of me. And I do see it as very helpful. I see it as a gift to give me information about what's happening in my inner world. So, sometimes I think we think of resistance like we think of emotions, and we often categorize them as good or bad. And I've long ago learned that that's not true. All emotions are just energy, and they're all just indicators about what's happening inside of us. And I think that our path to enlightenment is really about becoming more and more conscious about our own inner tapestry. And so resistance is well woven into most of our beautiful inner tapestries. And I began to contemplate, what is it that resistance has done for me? What are the gifts of resistance? And I know Katie was a little surprised when I mentioned that resistance was a gift. But I really truly believe that. So for me, resistance has shown me the things that I'm afraid of. Because sometimes when I'm resistant, it's because I'm afraid to move into something that I know is really going to be good for me. And so when the resistance shows up, I get this message about the importance of something or the significance of moving forward. Also resistance has shown me the places where I have unhealed wounding. Because sometimes I can be resistant, and it's not even about the present moment. It's a reaction that's coming from a piece of myself that has some unhealed wounding. And so if I'm willing, and you're going to hear this over and over today, if I'm willing to sit and befriend that resistance and go beyond it to the deeper layers where I can find the woundedness, I can hold this compassionate space of love for myself, and I can begin to heal those places. Sometimes resistance shows us where we need boundaries, where we need to say no, or where we need to say yes. And mostly, I think the lesson of resistance for me has been about slowing down, not pushing myself. I've become so aware of how much bullying I do of myself and how much I will push through resistance. And then it doesn't feel good. And I've learned that breathing, slowing down, taking the time to just give my resistance a voice actually leads me to insights about myself that are really beautiful. So I can learn to trust my own inner feelings, my own inner resistance, and I become more conscious and more aware of who I am. What if when a resistance showed up, instead of saying, I mustn't feel resistance, I mustn't feel resistance, I must push through the resistance, we just allowed, we just sat with curiosity, with compassion, and we could hear those underlying messages. You know, the old expression, what you resist persists. And sometimes it's about a life lesson. Sometimes it's about a feeling. Sometimes it's about a message from the divine. We can get a message and we can resist that. And what we resist will persist. And I always loved Wayne Dyer's quote that whatever we are for strengthens us, but what we are against weakens us. And resistance is actually against something. Sometimes it's against a truth we need to know. Sometimes it's against a person that we need to have boundaries with. Sometimes it's against ourselves. And as I just said, sometimes it's against our divine source coming through us and giving us a message. So resistance is important. It's a message for us. One of my favorite quotes comes from the AA Big Book. And acceptance is the answer to all my problems today. When I am disturbed, it is because I find some person, place, thing, or situation, some fact of my life, unacceptable to me. And I can find no serenity until I accept that person, place, or thing, or situation as being exactly the way it's supposed to be in this moment. Nothing, absolutely nothing happens in God's world by mistake. Unless I accept life completely on life's terms, I cannot be happy. I need to concentrate not so much on what needs to be changed in the world around me as on what needs to be changed in me and my attitudes. And as I said, AA Big Book. You know, we can't talk about resistance without talking about the big C, which is control. And I think in some cases, resistance is really about control. And it's about that trying to control everything and everyone around us and resisting all the things that want to flow in. You know, I once had this vision. I was praying on my way to work, and I had this visual of all the beautiful things that God wanted to gift me with. And I saw my own resistance to them. I saw that I wasn't open and willing to receive them. And that was resistance. And I realized that all I had to do was make a choice. So back to control. You know, in the past, I may have tried to control my resistance. I may have tried to control my emotions. I probably tried to control other people. And really, most importantly, I've tried really hard to control myself. We do this so that we can feel safe in the world. And we're not bad. It's just something that we all have been conditioned to do and learned to do. I love this quote by Adashante from his book, Emptiness Dancing. And listen carefully because it's quite the challenge. What if you let go of every bit of control and every urge that you have, right down to the most infinitesimal urge to control anything, anywhere, including anything that may be happening with you at this moment? Imagine that you were able to completely and absolutely give up control, totally, completely. Then you would be spiritually free. Many people say that when you dig deep into the deepest level of human emotional makeup, the primary emotion that keeps human beings separate is fear. I found that not to be true. I find the core issue that keeps humans expressing themselves as separate is the desire and the will to control. Fear arises when you think you have no control, or you become afraid when you realize you have no control, but you haven't yet given up your desire for control. So control for me isn't about not feeling resistance and not feeling my feelings. It's about taking 100% responsibility, not projecting that outward and trying to control the things around me, the people around me, the situation, so that I can feel safe. It's about me honoring my own emotions, my own resistance, my own fear, and then allowing myself the time and space to feel my feelings. That's really how we become more conscious and more aware. Last year, my friend was offering this course, this art, painting your goddess, your inner goddess. And the last time I spoke at Unity, I spoke about creativity. And I shared with you that I haven't seen myself as a creative person. And so I've never been much for painting or those kinds of creation. I acknowledge I create in many ways, including my big musical theater productions. But when it comes to visual arts, I've steered clear from that. And as a lot of us have, I probably have some woundedness from my childhood around not being good enough. So my friend was going to offer this course on painting your inner goddess. And I thought I should go. I should go. And I had a myriad of reasons. I should go to support my friend. And then once I committed, I should go because I have now committed. And then I should go because it will be good for me. And I should go because I'm afraid of this. And on and on and on. What I didn't do was check in and breathe and see if it was actually in my best and highest good to go. So I plodded along, forcing myself to pay the money for the workshop, forcing myself to prepare. And about a couple days before, I really hurt my ankle. And I was having a lot of issues with standing. And we were going to be standing. And it was like 35 above in her backyard, standing for 3 days painting. But you know what? This is a case of me bullying myself and not really checking in. I pushed myself through. I resisted listening to my own inner guidance, and I just did it anyway. Well, the first evening, I came home so sore and so miserable. But I wasn't going to let my friend down, and I was not going to keep my commitment. The next morning, my little Winston was very ill, and my husband wasn't here, and so he was really ill, and I thought I gotta attend to him. And so then I was torn. But when it came to taking care of someone else, I knew that I had to do that. And so I was able to say to my friend, I'm not going to attend today because Winston is really ill and I need to get him to the vet. After all of that was taken care of and I sat and I contemplated, I was able to reflect on, how I wouldn't have even heard the message if it came, because I was just determined of my own bossiness to attend this workshop. And I recognize that a lot of times I've done this to myself, not allowing myself to feel my resistance and honor that, because perhaps this isn't the right thing for me. Carl Jung said, emotion is the chief source of all our becoming, all our consciousness raising. There can be no transforming of darkness into light or of apathy into movement without feeling our emotions. I thought that was really interesting, moving apathy into movement, unless we can feel our feelings. And resistance is a part of that. So I think it's just about being okay with, it's about accepting, as I said in that earlier quote, accepting whatever arises. As Matt Kahn, if you listen to Matt Kahn, I love that. He always says, love whatever shows up. love whatever rises in us, meet it with compassion, because there's a reason that it shows up, and it's nothing to do with us being bad or unenlightened or off track. It's just to do with our wounded pieces. And I also thought this was kind of interesting that resistance training is a very popular thing right now. And I've done some resistance training, and I kind of like that feeling as you're resisting with the bands, of how strong you feel and how you can really get in touch with your own strength and your own limits. And I think resistance, as it shows up sort of from an emotional, psychological perspective, is very much like this. It's like, explore with it. Isn't it fun to explore with those rubber bands and to kind of play with them and to see, how far you can go, where's your limits, where you could grow, where you could get stronger? I just thought that was kind of an interesting analogy. My last story about resistance is about my mom. Who's been passed for like 25 or 30 years. But I loved her dearly. And she had breast cancer, and she was ill for, quite a few years. And she had a lot of the traditional treatment. And the last time that I actually spoke to my mom in the flesh, I went to the Foothills Hospital to sit with her. And my mom would always ask me to pray. She was a woman of great faith, except she didn't have faith in herself as much as she did in me. And I said to her, Mom, you can pray for yourself. And she said, yes, I know, but I just want you to pray for me. And she said what she wanted me to pray for was that all of this would be over, that, she could be done with all these treatments and all these medical interventions. And so I did pray for her. And after, as we were chatting, I said to her, Mom, you know that you can surrender and that this is your choice, and you can say no to any of these treatments. Because of, who she was and where she came from, she didn't really see that. She said that she had to do what the doctor told her, and that was, that. I left there and contemplated that quite a lot, and I actually found it a little sad that she didn't recognize she actually had some choices and she could be her own advocate. But it was only a couple of days later, I got a phone call early at 6 a.m. actually, from my sister saying that my mom had passed. I could feel her presence instantly. And I said to her, Mom, you finally made a choice on your own behalf. And I could feel that was her way of surrendering. I hope we don't have to come to that dire of a decision. But I hope that we can learn to meet our resistance with such compassion that we gain a deeper understanding of who we are, and that we heal ourselves in those places where the resistance is there to protect us and to keep us safe. It really is my prayer that we can know ourselves. But more than that, it's truly my prayer that we can know the God source that we are, that we can feel within us the loving flow of life that is never ending. I often think, and have been told actually, my purpose on this planet is to share with you the God as I understand. And this is how I understand it, that you and I share this beautiful life force of love, and that no matter what comes at us, we can love our way through it by being compassionate, introspective, and kind to ourselves. Thank you, and God bless.